This is LXPN TV, and I'm Colin O'Keefe. Popular retailer Abercrombie & Fitch recently scored a major victory against the EEOC in a case in which Abercrombie did not hire a young woman because of her Muslim headscarf, her hijab. Joining me now to discuss is one of our go-to guys on EEOC cases, Sefer Shaw attorney Jerry Maatman. He's the lead counsel on 3 of the 5 largest EEOC suits in the country right now, and he is also author on the firm's workplace class action blog. Jerry, first, can you explain the backstory of the ruling here? What exactly happened?
Sure. It's a very interesting case in that the backdrop involved a series of lawsuits that the government brought against Abercrombie over what's called its look policy that show people on the sales floor wear East Coast preppy clothing and exude an image that the company wants to portray to customers that come in the store. The EEOC filed 2 previous lawsuits and settled them with Abercrombie and required as conditions of those settlements that the company change some of its personnel policies involving religious accommodations. This case from the 10th Circuit decided on October 1 involved a situation in Oklahoma, a third lawsuit that the company lost on the grounds that a 17-year-old teenager, Muslim, who wore a headscarf to her interview, applied for a salesperson job called a model at the company and was denied that job, and the EEOC claimed it was for religious reasons and that the company should have reasonably accommodated her and allowed her to wear her headscarf on the sales floor. The district court in July of 2011 actually entered summary judgment in favor of the EEOC. The company appealed, and as mentioned on October 1st, the 10th Circuit not only vacated the summary judgment order in favor of the EEOC, it ruled that the company, in fact, was entitled to summary judgment and that the case ought to be dismissed. So it was a pretty stunning result, not often seen, where an appellate court not only vacates an order, but then reverses completely and says the company was in the right and should have been released from this lawsuit.
I see, and of course, Abercrombie's look policy has been the source of much controversy, but this, of course, applies to more than just Abercrombie. So, second, what are the implications of this for employers? Why is this such a big deal?
It's a key case insofar as it articulates what a duty of an employer is when it comes to making an accommodation for religious purposes. There are only 2 anti-discrimination laws which afford employees or applicants accommodations. One is under the disabilities law, the other for religious discrimination situations. And the 10th Circuit ruled that because Abercrombie did not know that this particular applicant wanted a reasonable accommodation, it had no duty to provide one. The EEOC had argued, hey, wait a minute, common sense would say a person who shows up for a job interview wearing one of these headscarves would need a reasonable accommodation, and the 10th Circuit took a somewhat common sense view of the statute and said, unless and until an applicant or an employee raises the issue of a need for a reasonable accommodation, an employer need not insert that issue into a job interview or into a discussion with an employee. The EEOC will fight this ruling tooth and nail. It's a ruling of the 10th Circuit that only applies in one of the circuits in the United States, so I expect to see further lawsuits over similar issues involving religious accommodations, involving lawsuits by applicants or employees. But this is a ruling that is very favorable for employers and allows them to set up what I would call a standard operating procedure for dealing with requests for reasonable accommodations for religious reasons, unless and until an employee or an applicant asks. An employer is under no duty to insert that into a conversation with the applicant or employee.
I see. As you mentioned, this is, of course, just in the 10th Circuit, so there is much to play out with this case and cases like it. Once again, that is Jerry Maatman of Sefer Shaw. To read more of his insight on this and other cases with the EEOC, be sure to visit workplaceclassactions.com. Thank you for joining me today, Jerry.
Thank you.